When you think of the greatest fighters of all time, you have to mention Jon Jones. However, when you think of the most controversial figures in MMA, you also have to mention Bones. This guy has been in hot water so many times that it's honestly hard to count. But here are 5 times Jon Jones almost or did ruin his career. Number 5. Getting arrested for a DWAI. Back in 2012, Jon Jones was at the height of his powers and was coming off a dominant title defense against Vitor Belfort at UFC 145. His next fight would be against Chael Sonnen in the main event of UFC 142. The build-up to the fight was great, as Sonnen is a phenomenal trash talker, and he made life difficult for Bones during the promotion for their bout. But everything was looking good for Jones going into the event. That was until the day of the weigh-ins. During the event, videos started surfacing showing Jones driving in Toronto in his SUV. The issue was that he was over the legal limit as he was celebrating UFC 152 with his teammates after making weight. This caused a media frenzy, and the UFC released a statement saying that they were looking into the incident. A lot of people were calling for him to be pulled from the event entirely. Ultimately, he was allowed to fight Sonnen later that night. And I guess you could say that karma got him, as Sonnen won the fight via unanimous decision. Although the win didn't take away the fact that he was a bad guy that night, it was obvious that Jones needed to get his life together. If something like this happened again, then it might just cost him his career. No. For losing to Matt Hamill, after the debacle with his DUI arrest, Jones really needed a bounce-back win against Dan Henderson at UFC 153. Unfortunately for him, it was the opposite, as Henderson took him to a 5-round war and defeated him via unanimous decision. This was a huge upset, as Henderson was a former light heavyweight champion who had nothing to be ashamed of in the loss. But it just wasn't Jones' night, as after the fight it was revealed that Jones had suffered a separated shoulder during the bout, which is never a good sign. To make things worse, he lost to a fighter that he should have beaten. Even though he did come back and defeat Vitor Belfort at UFC 182, a lot of fans were disappointed in how he looked during the victory, as he appeared to not be in shape. So, to make matters worse, Jones was stripped of his title for missing weight and for testing positive for metabolites of the banned substance 19-androsterone. This led to him losing his title and then having to go through the rest of the year with no fights, which just added more fuel to the fire. No. 3. Getting popped for PEDs. When Jones returned to the octagon in 2015, he was able to capture the vacant light heavyweight championship from Daniel Cormier. He would then successfully defend the title 2 times before it was announced that he had tested positive for metabolites of the banned substances, drosterone and trenbolone. This came out right before his 3rd title defense against OSP at UFC 200, so this was another huge setback for Jones. But unlike the last time, this test was conducted by USADA rather than the UFC. This meant that he would face a 4-year suspension, which would keep him out of action until late 2019. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're saying that this isn't technically ruining his career, as he still has a chance to compete in the UFC afterwards. But Jones would be 33 years old upon his return, and he would be returning to a completely different division. The light heavyweight landscape would look vastly different than it did when he left. And if he wanted to compete for the title, he would have to climb the rankings while dealing with injuries and fatherhood. So needless to say, this was a massive setback for Bones. No. 2. The hit and run. In May of 2018, Jones was involved in a hit-and-run accident in New Mexico. According to the police report, Jones crashed his car into a pedestrian, identified only as a 51-year-old female, while she was walking her dog. Jones then left the scene on foot, and the woman's dog then ran off as well. Although the victim did sustain serious injuries and was transported to a nearby hospital via helicopter, Jones was eventually found and arrested on charges of fleeing the scene of a crime, negligent driving, and other traffic offenses. Though this wasn't a drug or a PR issue, it still painted Jones in a very negative light. And if the UFC decided to release him, nobody could argue against it. Thankfully for Jones, the UFC waited for all the details to come out, and they decided to suspend him for 1 year instead of outright releasing him. This suspension would end up being the best thing for Jones, as he was able to clear his name and the public saw that he was trying to be a better person. But if the UFC decided to cut him here, there's a chance that he may not have been able to return to the UFC ever since. And no. 1. The most recent arrest. The crazy thing about all the previous incidents is that Jones was able to learn and grow from them, but the same can't be said about his most recent arrest. On September 24, 2022, Jones was arrested for drunk driving in New Mexico. What makes this so bad is that Jones had a blood alcohol level of 0.255, which is more than 3 times the legal limit in New Mexico. Not only that, but Jones had 2 passengers in his car, one of whom was his 7-year-old son. It's hard to believe that anyone would make such a terrible decision, and even harder to believe that Jones would do this twice in the same state. It's no wonder why the UFC immediately suspended him following the news of his arrest, though he's already apologized for his actions. It will be interesting to see if the UFC keeps him on, or if this will finally be the straw that breaks the camel's back. What do you guys think? Do you think Jones had the world in his hands and could uncope with the fame and success? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more great content. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.